This podcast contains strong language and adult themes.
Date Night China explores life and love for better relationships in China. Every week, we hear from different guests and dive into dating, relationships, mental health, and how both expats and Chinese people connect with each other here in China.
Join the Date Night community through our podcast and events in Beijing and Shanghai, and catch up on all the latest stories on our official WeChat account.
Find our account on WeChat by searching Date Night China, no spaces, no capital letters. You can also join our WeChat group by adding Rachel, me, on WeChat. You can search Rachel Weiss 22, RACHEL WEISS 22.
And now for this week's episode. Welcome back, China Daters. In this week's episode, we talk to Jocelyn Eikenburg, an American woman who is married to Jun, a Chinese national from Hangzhou.
I'm so excited about this episode.
Yes, you are.
Jocelyn is somebody I've read her blog. I discussed this in the episode, but I've read her all over because she's such an experienced writer. She has so much to share about her experiences being married to a Chinese man. And she's also been all over the place, you guys. So Jocelyn Eikenburg is a writer and blogger. Her marriage to Jun, a Chinese national from Hangzhou, ultimately inspired her to blog on her site, Speaking of China. She has been interviewed by the BBC about her blog and cross-cultural marriage and appeared on CCTV. You can find her writing in the Wall Street Journal, the Huffington Post, the anthologies How Does One Dress to Buy Dragonfruit, and Unsavory Elements, and other publications. Jocelyn has blogged about topics such as being a Yangxifu, the foreign wife of a Chinese man in China, interracial or cross-cultural relationships, including related stereotypes and racism, and books and authors that appeal to her readership.
So, in this episode of Date Night China, we discuss her experiences as a Yangxifu, the foreign wife of a Chinese man, and being in a WWAM or WAM relationship, which is Western women, Asian men. So enjoy.
Welcome, Jocelyn. We are so excited to have you on Date Night China episode 5 today. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I'm really psyched to be here, so thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. So right now we're in Beijing, and Jocelyn, you are in Hangzhou right now, right?
That's right.
Awesome. So how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you from? How long have you been in China? Also, for our topic today, because you are married to a Chinese man, tell us a bit about how you and your husband Jun met and how long you've been together.
Yeah, sure. Right, so I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio in the US, and I've been in China for over a decade. I first came to China actually in 1999, so I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of change, and yeah, my husband, it's interesting, I'm in Hangzhou here because this is actually where my husband and I met. You know, he's originally from Hangzhou, so this is his home area. And we met many years ago. We were both colleagues at an internet company, and he was kind of a translator, and I used to proofread his translations, and so we got the opportunity to work together every now and then, and I guess we had good chemistry, both on the job.
Office romance.
Sounds like a nice little cute meet. Meet cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, meet cute.
Cute meet. Meet cute.
Cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sort of met through a colleague too. She kind of nudged us together. She invited us to her hometown here in the province, and we went there, and it's kind of the rest is history, so to speak. So and then coming back to Hangzhou, now we're in Hangzhou, and it's kind of there's just so many good memories in the city, not just being my husband's hometown, but I could just think of places that where we had some of our first dates. We even on one of our big first date that kind of sealed the relationship was right next to the West Lake, which is obviously one of the top, or not, if not, I would say the top attraction in Hangzhou. And so we have what we dub our own bench, that was where we had our first kiss, and so there's been a few times we even go back to this bench, and we've gotten pictures by the bench, and so yeah.
Cute.
That's so romantic as well, because Westlake is just a beautiful place in Hangzhou. You know, there's all these famous Chinese phrases and sayings. That's really cute.
Yeah, like I mean, actually, I'm a snake in the Chinese zodiac, and I don't know if you guys know that there's a story associated with the Westlake. Have you ever heard about the white snake? Are you familiar with that story?
No.
No.
Oh wait, it does ring a bell, but I wouldn't be able to tell it. No.
Yeah, well, anyway, it's kind of there's a love story also within it. Like this white snake who she morphed into a human being, and then she met this man. They fell in love. It was by the Westlake, and so my husband likes to joke, I'm a snake, so he calls me the white snake. So and he has like this snake nickname, and it's like in my WeChat, and so Chinese people always see the snake nickname and they think that that's my Chinese name, and I have to explain no, that's actually my husband's nickname he gave to me, and then I tell them the story behind it, and they're like, oh, it's cute.
That's so cute. Oh, you guys. And how long have you been married and together? Like, how long were you dating? And then when did you get married?
Okay, so, we're going to be, so I'm going to be giving away, but, this year will mark 20 years that we've been together, like, as a couple.
Wow.
This year. And then we will have been married for, this year will be we're not quite, but it will be 18 years like this year. So
wow, congratulations, that's amazing.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And
I've loved, Jocelyn is an amazing, I just love your blog and everything. And I remember the first time I read any of your writing, it was in the Unsavory Elements book, and Red Cublets was your article in there, and I was like, I don't think I put it together, because later I met you here in Beijing, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's Jocelyn. I've read her writing. I've read her blog. Like, it was just an amazing thing, because you have so much experience writing about your intercultural relationship with June, and all that goes into being a Western woman dating an Asian man. So to jump into this topic today, can you tell us, what is a Yangxifu? Because on your blog, you say you used to have kind of a segment, Ask the Yangxifu. So for our audience members who may not know what that is, what is a Yangxifu?
Basically, it's the term for a foreign daughter-in-law in Chinese, and so that's what we're often referred to as, Yangxifu. There's also the other counterpart, which is Yang and that's for the men who are married to Chinese women. But for us, those of us that are married to Chinese men and Chinese, we're often called to, Yangxifu. So when I first came to China, I remember, because there weren't a lot of social, media platforms, and you just didn't have a lot of these opportunities to meet other people in your tribe, so to speak. So it was kind of a isolating experience, at first, trying to meet people, and then you find down the road you start realizing that the experiences that you have sometimes are just kind of unique, or you experience things that maybe other people don't necessarily completely understand, or so I started writing about it kind of as a way to just sort of put things down and kind of work through it. And then gradually, through the writing, I started meeting other people and kind of being able to make connections with people who could experience, who understood what was going on. And it's been great, over the years, as social media has gotten, more networks and more ways to connect. I mean, now on WeChat, we have all these networks, different WWAM, we call it Western Women, Asian Men, all sorts of WWAM groups and ways to connect with other fellow WWAMs. And it's been great, because I feel initially when I was writing, and there wasn't a lot of that, and now it's really great to see that there are these WWAM networks and other, Yangxifu can be supporting each other and helping each other, and it's really gratifying to see that there's kind of that momentum in that community, so to speak. But I mean, when I started doing this, there just wasn't a lot of it, and it's I remember when I was way back then, it's when you would meet a WWAM, when you meet another Yangxifu, you just get so excited, you just feel like you just want, and I remember I just want to take them aside and start asking all these questions. And I remember one time when my husband and I lived in Shanghai, and I remember we went to the Shanghai Museum, And then I remember like seeing a couple there, and this was again like, you know, not a lot of social media like era. And then I suddenly saw a Wham couple, and I wanted to run after them, you know, and like, you know, and I'm like, no, they're gonna think I'm an idiot. They're gonna think I'm crazy. So,
that's hilarious, but it's so great. It's like a bonding experience right away that you're like, they know what my experience has been like, or they can get it.
Well, I wonder. Is it important to have that identification, that community within, or that identification within the community, like the WWAM like name? Does that sort of help? You know, like it's sort of like taking ownership over like what you go through and what other couples similar to you go through.
What you mean, just like being able to kind of like put a name to like who we are and
yeah.
I mean, it's certainly good to have a community. I mean, you can come up with all kinds of names. I think I remember one woman came up with that. The one woman, I think it was Amber Swift. Like, she's like that, I don't know if you know her, she's like a singer-songwriter, and she's also had been in a Wham relationship. And yeah, she was the one that, I think she came up with the name, like, Wham. But I mean, there's been different names. But it's good to have, I think, have a community and maybe have something that you can, some sort of moniker that you can put to it. And I mean, I know that some girls even talked about, let's have a secret handshake or something like that.
Wow. Do you know the secret handshake?
Well, I don't think she'd tell us right now. Would she?
Yeah, we can't know it. I guess.
Because then you'll try to infiltrate and
the secret Wham society. Yeah, that's really cool though, to have that support and that community, especially like you mentioned before, it wasn't talked about as much, or social media made it more like, it's made it more accessible to meet other people in those kind of relationships. So what has your experience been like with being a Yangxifu and with June's parents, especially in his culture? First of all, do you speak Chinese? And were his family like pretty accepting of you as a foreigner marrying into the family?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that with his parents, it was kind of pretty typical for a lot of us, because I think for a lot of us, when we have to meet the parents, in his case, his parents weren't at the extreme end, because there are some parents, they'll actually just, I don't want my son to date a foreigner at all. And I actually dated a guy, and I experienced that barrier, and it actually ended up ending our relationship. So that happened to me once before. But with his parents, his father was like, you can be friends with a foreign girl, but not date her. So there was that. But I mean, the thing about June is that he's sort of a rebellious guy. And so, I mean, his parents might say a certain thing, but he might just kind of do what he wants anyway. And his parents actually, I mean, are as I've come to learn over the years, are a lot more easygoing. Like, you kind of get that, you have that stereotype of sort of the authoritarian, like, Chinese parents, and his parents aren't necessarily like that way at all. They're actually a lot more chill in certain ways than a lot of Chinese parents. But like, that was like the first thing I knew of his parents. I hadn't met them yet, but I mean, he went back home like after it was like a month or so after we started dating, to kind of report to them about his new girlfriend. And then that was like the intel that they brought back. But I was like really stressed by that, because, I'd had a relationship that, that was it, parents weren't on board and it was over. But it was different with him, because, he was very dedicated to our relationship, and it wasn't going to get in their way. And so then later on, the coming Chinese New Year, he invited me to come home with him. And I was, of course, like, I mean, talk about like being stressed. I mean, it's like, it's one thing to like meet the parents, but then you're like staying over at their house, for like the biggest holiday. Yeah, I mean, I remember asking all my friends like for advice, and they were telling me you need to buy gifts. And I remember one of my friends taking me out to go gift shopping for the right gift for Chinese New Year.
What did you buy?
Oh, I'm trying to think. Did I buy like? I'm not sure if I bought. I might have bought Chinese. I might have bought American ginseng or something like that. I think it was probably ginseng, like, one of these sort of like nutritious kind of nourishing sort of things. Those are really great for Chinese New Year gifts. So I remember brought that, and then another one of my friends, she's like, maybe you could get some new clothes made, and I got one of those those Tang Dynasty style jackets, like made by a tailor, and I got the skirt to go with it. So I got this really nice outfit, which actually turned out to be a bad idea because I didn't realize that, like, out in the countryside, like, there's no heat out there and it's really cold, and so I had like almost no chance to wear it, but I made this really nice outfit.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just kind of funny. I think I wore it one day.
It's the thought that counts.
Yeah, I wore it like one day. I think I went down the stairs, wore the outfit, and then I'm like, it's cold. Then I went back upstairs.
Like, take your pictures now.
Yeah.
This is not happening.
Yeah. And another interesting detail too about when I went to first visit his family is that, like, before I came, like, they didn't even have like indoor plumbing, like a toilet, and they actually built a toilet when they knew that I was coming. Like, they built a flush toilet.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is such an amazing welcome.
Yeah, if that's not an acceptance into the family, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I mean, nothing says hospitality like installing plumbing,
I agree.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like it, like, set up a really good first meeting then. Like, how did that go? Were they very welcoming? Could you speak with them?
Yeah, I mean, at the time I was able to speak some Chinese. Like, I had a good foundation. So at the time when, like, June and I, we met, we had a pretty bilingual relationship, because already, he was a translator, and we were actually, like, working on translation. So we kind of had this, like, back and forth between English and Chinese, and so I was, I could speak with them in some Chinese, but, of course it was nerve-wracking, because you're staying with your, like, boyfriend's parents, in their house, I mean, it's already nerve-wracking when we're meeting the parents, like, in our own, like, respective countries, and we have to just go over there, but you're staying in their house, I mean, like, I remember being, like, so cold because there was no heat, but I was like, I didn't want to complain about it, so I didn't say anything, and I remember I caught cold. But yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah. But, like, one of the things that helped, it was like a couple days in, and I was like, his mom was kind of, I found this out later, I mean, obviously getting to know his mom's really sort of, she's a little bit more cautious around people, so she wasn't, like, didn't warm up to me, like, really quickly, but, like, his dad's a little bit more, easier to kind of talk to if you're somebody new. And I happened to bring some photographs, and I remember I'm not sure how it came about that I brought out the photographs. I'm not sure if it was maybe my husband suggested, but I took those photographs out and I tried to show them to his dad, and his dad just kind of, like, enjoyed flipping through these photographs, and there were photographs of pictures from back in the US and my family, and it was just, it opened up kind of a conversation, like just a brief conversation between us, and really helped to break the ice. And in fact, it's one of the things now, like, I tell people, if you're going to go home to, like, meet the parents for the first time, it's really great to bring photographs. And of course, digital photographs make it a lot easier. I had, like, a little photo book at the time when I first went. But that was the thing that really helped. And I also had met my husband's, like, his eldest brother too. And so that helped as well. Like, his eldest brother, like, liked me, like, before I actually went to meet his parents. So that was also a big.
Oh, nice. You had somebody on your side.
You might have done the groundwork a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So that
your
was,
corner.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a lot easier in that respect, that I already had kind of a relative on the side, and yeah, I mean, I feel in a lot of ways blessed that June's parents, again, they're more, in a lot of ways, compared to some parents, maybe a little bit more easygoing and a little bit more understanding. And actually his mom, the funny thing is, I mean, for however cautious she was, like, that first time that we met, like, I have like the best relationship with his mom now. And I mean, my husband kind of says that he thinks his mom likes me the best out of all the daughters-in-law. Like, cause like his mom, she's like the most amazing cook. And so I always ask her like for tips on how to cook things. And so she's taught me how to cook a lot of great food. Aww. And she's so smart. Like she didn't get like, I think she only went through a few years in like of elementary school. So she didn't even like fully complete like her primary school education, but she's so smart. She's a really smart person. And yeah, I mean, the cooking thing really brings us together because her food is so good. And it's just a really great thing to, you know, learning how to make good food and sharing that kind of experience. So that's also something good. Like if you know something about, like if I had known that about her, maybe I would have spent more time in the kitchen and asked her more about like what she's cooking, you know, because I mean, I love to cook. In fact, I mean, this holiday, you know, recently I've just been spending all these days at home, like cooking great food. That's like one of my favorite things to do is cook great food. So yeah.
Oh wow! Yeah, that special like bonding through that kind of like love language of food and cooking together.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, not initially, but it kind of built up over the years, you know. But initially, those photographs, I felt like they really made a difference in kind of helping to break the ice a lot.
So I want to so you know I've read a lot of your articles, and your website, speaking of China, is incredible. You have so many experiences you've shared about your in-laws and being married with June. And you also spoke about challenging moments as an expat living abroad, but being married to somebody like a Chinese national. And you wrote about the idea of like having these fabulously expat, like super sexy lives, you know, and there's kind of this imagination, this idea of that, but the reality is quite different. I'd like to read this excerpt that you wrote so that we can kind of share that with the audience first and then dive in deeper about your thoughts about it. So you said, before I met June, I imagined international love to be as sexy as a James Bond movie, where lovers went to Monte Carlo, to the Casbah, as easily as ordering a martini. But then I went to China and I was shaken and stirred by the reality there. And I thought that was just
That's a great line.
I
That's
know.
Great. Wow.
She's a great writer.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Thanks.
Just tell us more about that.
Gosh, yeah, I feel, well, you know, that line actually came from an essay I wrote a number of years back, like where I was kind of, I was recalling the experience of, you know, it was just so heart-wrenching when I realized how hard it was to bring my, you know, now my husband, but at the time he was my boyfriend. You know, I wanted to do what everybody instinctively wants to do when you have somebody you love in your life, you're dating, and you want to share this person you love with the people that you love back at home. You want to introduce them to your family, right? And so I was like, oh, I'm going to take June to the U.S., you know? And, you know, I said, let's have you apply for a visa, a tourist visa to go to the U.S. And, you know, denied, you know? And I mean, you know, it didn't, it was just, you know, I didn't know much about applying for visas. And of course, I mean, nowadays with like social media and more networks, there's more information and people have more understanding. So I think nowadays, if I had been, you know, approaching it, I would have had a better understanding. I would have realized that the perils in our situation, but I didn't know that. And I mean, you know, it's like, yeah, you know, some government official, somebody in this consulate, you know, who has like no interest in your family, could just decide whether or not you get to go back home to see somebody. And you know, it sucks that that's the way things are, and then that's the way things are. And you know, it's not. It was really hard I mean, I remember I cried for days. I think I remember I took a personal day off work at the time. And I mean, obviously, eventually I did. June and I, we were able to go to the U.S. Like he got a green card and we moved there. We lived there for a period of time before we came back. But yeah, I mean, and I also encountered those barriers too. Like there was a period of time when I went to Taiwan. At the time, the company that I was employed with, they sent me to Taiwan, and I wanted I thought, oh, it'd be great if June could come, but I mean, obviously the situation between the mainland and Taiwan, and it is what it is, and I mean, and it was a contrast to one of my colleagues who he actually ended up, an American colleague at the company, he ended up going to Taiwan as well. And his, also American wife, she went to Taiwan several times to visit, and they traveled around, and it was just like, and you can't, that some of these things just, they just aren't possible. And I mean, and I've had, other experiences too, as well in the U.S. I mean, even like applying for the green card and having to learn all the ins and outs of the, the immigration system of the visa or the U.S. and dealing with that. And there are so many things that like we don't realize until we're on this other side, I mean, things that I would not have known had I not married a foreigner, and certainly somebody from China. I think even like if you're married to a foreigner, but you're talking about a different country, like say if you're an American married to somebody in the UK, it's a completely different experience than
yeah,
right.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, I don't think we'd have we won't have those same issues, and that's like something that you definitely take for granted. But going into that, when you think the first thing is your relationship, and then suddenly you've got to learn about all these things that you didn't know that were an issue suddenly. So it must be, to say it's frustrating is probably an understatement. So I can see that. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there was actually a movie about, I don't know if you guys ever saw that movie, like Crazy. I think it came out with Felicity Jones, and it was like, I think it was like 2010 or 2011, but it was about like.
We will check it out.
Yeah, I don't think
you guys need to check it out. Yeah,
it's like a rom-com.
It is a rom-com, and it's about visa issues. It's a UK and American couple, and I thought it's a really, really wonderful movie because they have some visa woes themselves. Although, kind of shame on them because one of them overstays, but I watched that movie and I thought it was great. It was poignant. It was really wonderfully done. But then I also thought, like, wouldn't the stakes have been much higher if they had taken a couple, like, a Chinese and American? Maybe like somebody, the barrier is they can't get the visa, which is a reality for a lot of people, and not even just couples who want to get tourist visas. You just, once you get into that visa world, you just sort of realize, and then the thing that it's, in the expat community, you often hear expats and they will, kind of harumph and, about all the visa things that the hoops they have to deal with in China. And I'm thinking, guys, you just don't know how tough it can be in your own like respective countries. If you guys knew, maybe you wouldn't be complaining so much.
I mean, we know some people, but we know some couples here, regardless of where they're from, but they will get married over here just to make life easier. Like it's more of a practical step, isn't it?
Legality wise, just to make sure you can like own things together, or if you're trying to get documents, things like that, they'll get married and they're like, you know what? It just will make life much easier.
Yeah, it will. It can. It does.
Yeah.
So I also want to ask you about your segment on your blog. It was called Ask the Yangxifu, and it was basically where you would kind of answer questions, because people have so many questions, I think, asking you about your personal experiences. And like you mentioned before, maybe there wasn't so much information about it. And, and because of your blog and everything, now they suddenly were able to talk to somebody directly. So tell us, what are some of those, how did you start that? Why did you start that? And what are some of the most popular questions that you would get from people?
Yeah, I think I just started because people were asking me questions, on the blog and in the comments. So I just felt like it might be a way to like a sort of like a space to kind of address some of those questions. And then it's just kind of how I just started doing that. And then I guess as far as like the questions, the kinds of questions that I often get, it's a lot of times it's just like, does he like me? People will send me, sometimes their whole life, sometimes really, really long ones. does he like me?
Yeah. I think it's a difference in like dating, even like I think Western women. I think there's a lot of Western women who are asking, does this Chinese guy like me? How do I tell? He's, more quiet. Does he like me back?
Yeah. And I think too, like they often ask about cultural differences. And I think that can be tricky, like trying to like sort out, I think, culture versus personality. Especially, I mean, when you're in a cross-cultural like dating sort of environment, because sometimes you don't know what's what. It can be, it can also, I feel like it also makes us more vulnerable at the same time. Like I wrote this piece in the blog a few years back about like whether or not like maybe cross-cultural kind of relationships like ours, like if we're more vulnerable to like what's kind of what I termed like kind of a one-sided relationship, and the kind of the idea like, in a one-sided relationship, it's like you have one person who's kind of doing all the work to try to adjust, to try to kind of adjust themselves to kind of what's going on in the relationship, and sometimes they think, well, I need to do more because, I'm not adjusted to the culture. But then they don't realize that, in fact, like what's going on is just this, you're dating somebody who's like a schmuck or, who's not a nice person, and
nothing to do with their culture. They're just a jerk.
Right. You don't realize that this person is in fact a jerk, but you just like attribute it to culture, and you think, well, it's my problem. I need to do better, or I need to learn more. I actually like the first guy that I ever dated in China, he was a Chinese guy. When I look back on it, like I feel like it was kind of a one-sided relationship too. And I mean, there were good things. I mean, I do have good memories of the relationship, and maybe that's our memories. We like to go when we look back on things, we try to remember the positives. But he made things really difficult for me. I mean, he was kind of he had this, I guess he was just all about the UK. He wanted to go to the UK. He loved, adored, idolized the UK, and I mean, that's a problem for me. I'm an American. I mean, it's like, it's not easy.
If you guys would have let us invade and like keep the country, back in the day, none of this Boston Tea Party bullshit, then it wouldn't have been so much of a problem for you, in my opinion. But
still bitter.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, he was all, I'm going to go to the UK to study, and he never entertained the idea of going to the US, and he wanted me to follow him, and the onus was always on me to, and I look back and I think, well, it shouldn't be all on one person or relationship. And I think, and interestingly, like if you like one-sided relationships, there's sort of like a book too about it by, I don't know if you've heard of Susan Bloomberg Kaysen, but she's also like a kind of part of the WWAM community, and she was married to a Chinese man. She divorced him, and she wrote a memoir about it called Good Chinese Wife. And I mean, it's really kind of a quintessential kind of one-sided relationship. And she always thought, it was cultural difference and she had to do better. And it was only like later as she she began to realize, no, wait, this is personality, and eventually, yeah.
You can see why. I could see how, like, it's quite a hard position to be in, because like us being foreigners in another country, there's that willingness there, right? We want to assimilate, we want to learn about those cultures, and because we've been surrounded by our own for so long, I guess it's harder then to know where the line is between really trying to learn somebody's culture and incorporate that into the relationship, and when you and also knowing, well, what's important about my culture that I need to hold on to and you need to know about, other than the large stereotypical things that it's sort of understood.
But I think it was a great point you made, though, about the cultural thing versus a personality, because I think, especially coming to China, there's so many stereotypes that go into relationships in general, but especially I think around the Asian man and Western female kind of relationship. There are so many things, and I know you've talked about that a lot. in a lot of your writings as well. So can you kind of introduce what some of those stereotypes are? Because I know even being in China, a lot of Western women say, I don't date Chinese guys, or Chinese guys are all like this, or they're all like this.
Yeah. I remember, when I first came to China, in 1999, and I was dating somebody way back when, and I remember I couldn't even talk about it with like the other foreign teachers that were in at the school I was at, because I actually overheard them one day at the table. They were just saying, like something about how all Chinese men, none of them are attractive. Like somebody just like point blank said that, like there are no attractive Chinese men at all, and just there was just kind of this consensus, like, oh no, not none of them, and then like, and I think you remember if you read the essay that I wrote for Unsavory Elements, and then there was a woman and she made this comment about how, like, how exciting it was for her to go back to the US every time, because she felt like, when she was in the airport, she was surrounded by all these handsome men that she hadn't seen for so long, in China. And I'm just like, what? But the thing is too, I to be honest, I do actually understand that, because, the funny thing is too, when I first came to China, and it was just initially was kind of just, I'm gonna come to China and do a little traveling, see part of the world kind of thing. I didn't even I assumed I would stay single. I had this when I went to the program to teach over here. This guy who had been a teacher previously in China. We got together over coffee, and he was telling me how about all the woes that he had with students falling in love with him, obviously female students, and he's like, oh, but you don't have to worry about students falling in love with you, so right there it was like the stereotypes right there, like, well, it does, Western women and Asian men don't really get together, or and even for me, like, I just assumed, well, I'd be going to China, I like to do Tai Chi, so I'm going to learn some Tai Chi, maybe visit some Buddhist temples. I was thinking about I was going to be a nun for a whole year, And I asked myself, it's like, why did I assume that? And I think, there's a lot of things. There's the kind of media environment, the sort of cultural environment. We're kind of fed these ideas. We grew up with these ideas, or maybe just not necessarily directly, explicitly told that, but just through sometimes the absence of seeing these images in the media, whether that's TV or movies or whatnot, you just don't. It's just. Things are certainly getting better. We're seeing, there's certainly improvement in representation over the years, but it's still just we still remain a small, like, there's not definitely as many of us as our other counterparts. So I think there's still something to be said. There's still barriers that need to be broken for sure along the way.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like you were saying,
there's a very negative stereotype around Asian men, especially like in Hollywood and American movies and TV shows. You never see these kind of interracial couples, and the men are always portrayed as like very effeminate or kind of weak, and there's a very negative idea around them.
Like Long Duck Dong, I mean, that's the the quintessential, right?
Yes.
One of the most cringeworthy ones, I mean,
yeah.
And it kind of
terrible,
right? And but recently, I mean, you might have seen the movie, Crazy Rich Asians. I mean, that's just you had this like coterie of just all these like really strong, really handsome, really incredible men, and not just like one. There were so many different amazing Asian men in that movie, and so I think that was really great, and also some amazing Asian women too. And it just, I think on both sides of that movie, movies like that are really a great way to help bust some of those stereotypes. I mean, obviously the movies can't do it alone, but it's good when you have more of that representation out there for sure.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I know Shang-Chi came out. I know that was like kind of a really exciting like first Marvel
Yeah.
like, Asian man represented really in a main movie by himself.
That actor is incredible, and actually, that actor Simu Liu, I know a number of us in the WAM community. I had like one girl, she wrote a whole article about how he was in this other TV series called Kim's Convenience. I know there's a little bit of WAM action going on, and she just like she really loved that TV series.
Okay. So if you want to get some eye candy, then Kim's Convenience and Shang-Chi. Gotcha.
That's amazing. So, I mean, I guess when you and June, after you met and were kind of dating, were there some moments that you had that it was like kind of what people wrote to you, like, does he like me back? Did he make the first move? Did you make the first move? Were there some cultural differences in how the dating, courting went?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, I mean, there was things progressed pretty quickly with us, like in a few weeks. But I think the things that like stick out to me, like cultural differences. One of the things that was really interesting, and we still joke about it, it's just like after we had like our big first date by the Westlake, and things were pretty like well settled, and we were very much happily coupled up. Then I remember, and I gave June a key to my apartment because I really, I wanted him to feel like he could come over anytime, but like we never had any conversation like, let's move in, let's, that sort of thing. And then like one day I come home and then there's like a bag and there's like a soccer ball and these soccer shoes. So like she had like moved that, and that was apparently all of his belongings. It was like one tiny little bag and the soccer ball, the soccer shoes, and so like he totally moved in, like just without talking about it.
And what did you do?
And I was a little surprised, but I mean, I was totally head over heels in love with them. So it wasn't like something like I freaked out and like, oh, like, this is, I mean, I gave him the key, but I didn't think he was gonna like,
You're like, I thought we would talk about this next step first.
Right. So like, I mean, that's the thing, like in his mind, everything was all settled. Our relationship was a settled thing. There was nothing else to discuss. Like, you're in. When you're in, it means, you move in. It means everything's on the table. But, of course, in our culture, like we're more, we need to talk about things. We need to define the relationship. Like, where are we? Like, there's none of that, for him, if we're coupled up. We're a settled couple. Okay, that's it.
Let's go.
Let's move in.
That's interesting. We talked about this
in episode 2. Actually, we had some 3 Chinese women come on, and they were talking about just some differences in culture and dating between China and even the West or the US, and just how there was there's not this really this dating phase. It's like once you're together, you're together, and then you go on dates with your partner because you're already together. There's just not this in between phase. You're it. That's
right.
Exactly. So that was
wow.
That's gonna be a culture shock for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I can still.
That's amazing.
So that was something, and I mean, also like, there are communication differences too, like how you express your affection. A lot of things are just kind of unsaid. Like you express it through your actions, right? Through the things you do. You may not necessarily say "I love you," or you might not say thank you as much. Like I've sort of had to train my husband, June, like he sort of had to learn that I like to hear I love you, and we've gotten accustomed to saying that, but it's not something that, comes naturally, just culturally, because that's just not, his parents don't even say, nobody says I love you in his family.
No,
say I love
that's
you.
not a thing, really.
No.
Yeah, my university students and friends, they used to tell me, oh, my parents don't say I love you. Then we were like, so how do they show their love? And they would ask me if I've eaten. They would remind me to wear a warm coat. They would, tell me to take an umbrella, things like that. They would it was showing their love, but not verbally saying it.
When we came back from Chinese New Year, June's mom stuffs our car with like, you know, this ungodly amount of food, like enough food to feed an army. And I could send you guys a picture. So I've taken photographs of it. There's just like all this food, just like, you know, the whole kitchen is covered in food and you can't even stuff it into the freezer. And, you know, she makes a stack of like the fried flatbread and, you know, and you know, this.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that is the love. That's where the love comes in. You know, from it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, just different ways of showing it, different love languages.
Yeah, so that's something, and then I think also, and also just the way that we communicate too. Like I know, like when we started dating, like in the few early years of our relationship, we definitely had we would butt heads, and sometimes my temper would flare up because, you know, I would get frustrated and, you know, June wouldn't understand what I'm trying to say, and then I get angry, and then in his response sometimes when I'm like being irate would be like to stonewall, and like I needed to talk things through, but like he wouldn't. That was just not like his way of like, you know, kind of dealing with things, and so we kind of had to also like learn how to work through that, and kind of like our different communication styles, which I think are also possibly based in cultural tendencies as well. And of course then food, you know, there's also always, you know, food just preferences which are cultural based. Like, I mean, like eating salad is not something that's like in the culture of China, you know, like eating.
Yeah, they're like cold vegetables.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, I mean, there are cold vegetables that people eat, but like lettuce is like not one of them. Like his mom, if she gets like lettuce, she'll stir fry it. You know, right? That's what they do. They stir fry the lettuce. And I remember the first time I introduced my husband to a salad, he thought he would get diarrhea from eating the lettuce. So.
He's like, what is this? Why are you giving this to me?
Well, it's good pointers for people to understand, you know, for the first dating, watch out for salad at vegan restaurants.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's
Yeah, it was, oh my gosh. Well, our time is coming to a close soon, but Jocelyn, it's been amazing having you on, and thank you for sharing. I feel like there's just so much more to unpack, and so many stories and experiences that you have. So we definitely want to encourage our audiences to check out your blog, Speaking of China. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Is there any other things that you have coming
Any parting wisdom that you could give? Oh yeah, any parting wisdom to anybody?
I think if there's any parting wisdom, I would just say, I would stress the importance of communication, you know, being able to talk things through. And sometimes I feel like the relationships that I know within the community of Yangxifu that seem to do well are the ones where people can kind of, they can communicate and they can help their other half to kind of understand sometimes some of the things that we don't necessarily talk about because they're culturally ingrained. Like we have to have those conversations sometimes to be able to explain, well, this is how I do it in my culture, and I know it's probably different from how you do it, and let's see if we can work out a way so that we can both kind of get to a point where we can communicate better. And besides that, I feel like it helps too if you do a few nice things, like, you know, give your partner a foot bath. That's always a good thing to do. Or if your partner has a sweet tooth, like my husband, give him chocolates. You know,
it's always a winner.
That can always smooth over a lot of things. So it's definitely worked for me. I had a period of time where I'd give my husband a chocolate. You know, and things were going good. Here, have a chocolate.
That's good.
I think I've done that tactic before. I think.
Yeah, and foot rubs. Yeah,
and foot rubs.
You do that, yeah.
Yeah, but you do it for me as well. So,
they work wonders. So
it is good. Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn. We've enjoyed having you on.
Yes.
And thanks everybody for listening to this episode of Date Night China.
Yeah, thank you. So, bye, Jocelyn.
Bye.
Bye-bye.